Thank you so much for watching today. If you could subscribe, I know everybody asks that, but it's really hard as a new content creator to get your stuff out there if you don't have a lot of subscribers. So here we have the rack, used in the Inquisition of most European countries in cases of heresy, blasphemy, adultery, and many other similar crimes against God, as they were called in such times. Besides common means of torture like beating, suffocation, and burning, the Roman Catholic Church used other, more depraved ways of extracting their confessions and to execute their victims. This wooden structure sported a system of cranks. The rack was the most widely used instrument of torture, designed to stretch the person's body, eventually dislocating their limbs and ripping them straight from their sockets. This honestly sounds like horrible and unbearable torture. My knees and joints are in so much pain daily, and to imagine them being pulled apart, honestly, it gives me pause right now. I can't even imagine the horrors these people went through. And people knew this was going on, and it was just a normal part of their daily lives. Like, yep, someone's being tortured right there in that building. And they just walked along like it was just another day. Besides the regular rack, an even more gruesome and sadistic version was invented by someone. I can't imagine the thoughts in someone's brain. Who comes up with these ideas? So it had a grater-like surface going under the victim's back. This one was used for heavier victims, and like both forms, the rack was very efficient at getting someone to confess, either real or made up, just to stop the torture. The stalks are two large wooden planks, used to keep victims' ankles, sometimes applied to the head and wrist, locked in place. This was an outdoor public humiliation type punishment, where the subject was a victim of both the weather elements as well as the acts of spitting, defecating and urinating, kicking, and other types of abuse. Anyone willing and present would take part. I've seen this depicted in cartoons and movies a lot. It was often made to look goofy or funny for the person inside of this device. I once went to a side road attraction that showed these torture devices, and people could go inside and take a photo in one of these stocks. Knowing this information now, I will definitely look differently when I see these portrayed in media or just out and about. Will you look differently when you see these now? Now, this one is truly horrific, and I know I keep saying this, but I will continue to say it throughout the video because it's true. The Heretics Fork is a simple, yet the design is very effective. The instrument, which consisted of two metal forks set one against the other, and one end resting just above the larynx and the other end above the trachea. The fork's prongs forced the subject to hold his head erect at all times in order to avoid the pain. They were unable to rest for even a moment. Since the instruments didn't target any vital organs, suffering could last for days without the danger of the victim's death. So obviously, the Heretics Fork was very highly popular with the Spanish Inquisition. I wonder if people spent their days coming up with new means of torture, far different from the way you and I are spending our time right now. Another device favored by the Spanish Inquisition was the pear. Very innocent sounding name, but this was truly horrific for the women who had to endure this. Mostly this was used on female victims, but really anybody with an orifice could take this device. The pear was inserted into the subject's vagina or mouth, and then expanded by twisting the screw on the outer end, lacerating and ripping the inside. The device could also be heated to cause even more pain. Torture sessions that involved the pear almost always had a fatal end due to infection. The items were rarely, if ever, cleaned. You can imagine the blood and bacteria just thriving on these things. The poor souls who had to endure these treatments. The Scold Bridle is a metal mask with an implemented mouth gag that was used mainly on women married to clergy up until the 19th century. Clergymen who accused their wives of disregarding their decisions had the right to use the Scold's Bridle. Laws were much different back then if you had the right to use this on somebody. I've been reading the Bible, and I don't mean to speak ill of it. These were different times after all. But in the Old Testament, if a man was jealous of his wife or suspicious of her in any way, thinking she cheated, he could take her to the priests. They would make her drink this water called bitter water, which caused the curse. And if she drank it, her tummy would become bloated if she was guilty and cause an abortion. And if she wasn't guilty, she would produce seed, as they would say. I've seen a lot of people say that abortions aren't mentioned in the Bible, but I really think that that's maybe Christians' way of covering their butts a little bit, because I'm a Christian and I've read this myself. I personally take it as, there is a bitter water that causes abortion, and if you needed it, you could use it. But I don't know if that's true. If you want to have a read, it's Numbers chapter 5, 11 to 31. Anyways, after the mask was applied, women were walked on a leash or chained to a marked cross where they were exposed to public ridicule. Yet another way to cause embarrassment to someone. I really do think, and this is just my opinion, that some people get off to causing humiliation to others. One of the most popular and cruelest torture and execution methods ever practiced is the wheel. This giant spiked wheel had to be operated by several men and was able to break literally every bone in a victim's body. As it turned, it caused agonizing and slow death. Multiple bones were broken, which could penetrate organs and cause a slow and very painful death. The Judas Cradle. The victim was stripped, hoisted, and hung over this pointed pyramid with iron belts. Their legs were stretched outwards, to the front or to the side, or their ankles pulled down by weights. The tormentor would then drop the accused down onto the pyramid, penetrating their body in whichever orifice they had. Sexual abuse seemed to be a very important part of these tortures, and to me that rings a bell. The men who judged these people took an oath of celibacy, and it seems they enjoyed punishments in the form of a sexual nature, to hurt those who didn't believe in what they did. This really twists me in a knot, but honestly, that's just my opinion. I really don't know if that's the case. This is yet another one I don't like. It gives me tingles and EBGBs. The breast ripper, known in another form as the iron spider or simply as the spider, was a torture instrument mainly used on women who were accused of adultery or self-performed abortion. The instrument was designed to rip the breasts from a woman and was made from iron, which was usually heated, and obviously was not clean, so if the woman did survive this, would likely die later of infection. Now, this is just truly heartbreaking, really. I don't have much to say other than my heart goes out to the people who this happened to. What suffering. Heartless some people are. I couldn't imagine doing this to someone and saying, there, you got what you deserve now. The knee splitter, another terrible torture, was mostly used during the Inquisition. The goal of this device was to render the limbs unusable. The name implies that this instrument was only used for splitting knees, but other body parts were used, the elbows, the arms, and even the lower legs. Some claws on these devices were heated to maximize effect, which I noticed is a reoccurring theme in some of these techniques. The people who invented these devices and techniques were truly horrible individuals. Other knee splitters had multiple small claws that penetrated the flesh as slow as possible to torture the captive for as long as possible. Now, this next one does include some truly horrible photos. So I do just want to give you a little bit of a warning. Even I, when looking at them, was thinking maybe I shouldn't put these in, but I think it's important for people to see what was going on. Before the saw was used, as we know today, it was used to slice through humans for torture or execution. The victim would be held upside down, allowing the blood to rush to their head, and then the executioner would slowly start slicing them between their legs. With the blood pooled in the head, the victim would remain conscious throughout most of the slicing, often only passing out or dying when the saw hit their midsection. I don't even want to think about having this happen to me. It's truly, truly horrific, sad, not right, every word you can think. I'm so sorry that this happened to people. It's not okay. The Brazen Bull, also known as the Bronze Bull, Sicilian Bull, or Bull of Phalaris, don't know if I said that right, was allegedly a torture and execution device designed in ancient Greece for thieves and criminals. The bull was said to be hollow and made entirely out of bronze, with a door in the side or the top. Some people believe this didn't exist, but honestly, with all we've heard previously, I do believe this was real. They designed it in the form and size of an actual bull and had an acoustic apparatus that converted screams into the sound of a bull. How terrifying. For people to stand around hearing this and think that this was okay and possibly enjoy it, what was going through their minds? They were truly different than we are today, I hope. I hope there's nobody that is around that likes this now. The condemned were locked inside the device and a fire was set under it. heating the metal until the person inside was roasted until they had passed away. Some modern scholars question if the Brazen Bull ever really existed, attributing reports of the invention to early propaganda. Do you believe that? It sounds like a way to cover up something they didn't want people believing others could do to other people. We know that people are capable of it. We know that people are capable of horrible things. Based on everything that we've talked about in this video, we know that they were capable of horrific things. What really sets this apart? I heard a story of a factory worker who went inside an oven to do a quick fix. He knew that he was never supposed to go in it, but he just saw that he could do this repair really quickly, wouldn't make a difference. So he popped in there and he was locked inside. He was slowly roasted. When they found him, he was at the front of the door, just pushed up against it, in the shape that seemed like he was banging on the door. A human will die at 200 degrees Celsius, and the oven that he was in slowly climbed to that heat, so he must have been suffering for a very long time. The death is caused by your blood literally boiling. It's terribly sad to think of what that might feel like.